What's going on, guys, and welcome to another spoiler review here at Big Gold Bell Media. Today we're going to talk about Invincible Season 2, Part 2, Episode 8. This is the season finale, folks. We have made it through this whole entire time, premiering on Prime April 4th. Me and Damien G are here. Damien, how are you feeling today about this episode? Just everything that we have to unpack so far. What would you think, just off the buck? What would you think about this episode?
Okay, so right off rip, I know you and I have talked about multiverses and how it's being a little played out with everyone having a multiverse thing in their stanza. Yeah. We got that here in a way where we have Mark being teleported by Angstrom to so many different universes, and it was kind of hard to keep up with even before you and I came on here. Just, man, did he go to? Who did Mark wind up seeing? So it was a very, I'll say it like this, it was in thirds. You know, like the first third was the teleporting or the portal jumping. And then it was the aftermath of just Mark dealing with where he was at the end of the portal jumping and protecting his mom and his brother. And then the third part, which might have broke the time-space continuum, and then, you know, apparently he was told, I won't talk about it, but he was told to either to shit or get off the pot in terms of Adam Eve. And yeah, and then kind of selfishly he didn't. And so, you know, that third, and then we're left with the stinger, you know, at the end of Alan and, you know, Nolan, and talking about I Think I Miss My Wife, which reminded me of that Chris Rock movie, I Think I Love My Wife.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots to discuss.
Yeah, it was definitely a full-fledged packed episode with a lot of different scenes. I would say the fighting definitely is a lot more on point in this episode. Yes. A lot of action, I think probably the dialogue is equally as good as the action in this one, because it's kind of telling the story of where we're going to get ready to go in the world of Invincible as well as Mark. So gets kind of crazy. This episode basically starts out on the Viltrumite ship, and we get to see Nolan is trying to basically get to full form, because I guess as a Viltrumite, you can only be sentenced to death if you're at your full peak, right? Or at your full potential in this episode. So he doesn't really want to fight back, but I mean, it seems like he's just trying to survive at this point, you know, but he doesn't really have a reason to live for. He's already kind of submitted to the Viltrumites and kind of figured out that, you know, I've accepted what I've done. I betrayed my kind. I'm just gonna take death as a man, I guess, or a Viltrumite, you know. But he's going through tons of different emotions, and at the end he's like on the ground. He's kind of defeated because we get to see General Craig, who's back in there, who's very annoying with that stupid eyepiece on his face.
Looking like Sinestro.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or the original version of Deadshot is what I remind me of. The original comics, right? With that little mustache. So he basically is getting ready to get wheeled off to his cell, and then one of the other Viltrumites, who are the guards, actually says something kind of like, you know, which it kind of stuck with me after watching the episode. But one of the guards says, "Sir, please don't make me drag you there, because I really looked up to you, you know, and the things that you've done for the Viltrumites, you're like one of my idols." And Nolan just stands up after getting beat up and cracks his back and is like, "Nah, I just wanted to walk," and just walks off to his cell, knowing that, you know, soon in the next couple of days is going to be the end. But as he walks into the hall, he sees Alan. I mean, big buff Alan the alien.
Alan.
Who is Seth Rogen? You close your eyes, it's Seth Rogen. There's no other person whose voice you can mistake this for.
Right.
And I was gonna say Seth Rogen. Alan starts talking to him telepathically, and he's like, "Why are you talking to me?" He's like, "Hey, you know, we'll talk later. I saw your son." He's like, "Oh, Mark's alive?" Like, now, you know, I think Nolan's brain is starting to kind of tinkering, starting to kind of work now. He's looking like, okay, maybe there's a reason why all this is not only happening, but maybe there's a reason where I can actually help the people of Earth at this time. So
he's got a reason to live now, apparently.
Right, exactly. Because at this point he was already defeated. His bug wife, who's gone, she's obviously dust now at this point. She already lived like for 3 weeks, so she's dead. Her son, his son Oliver, who he doesn't even know his name at this point, is on Earth with Debbie, Mark's mom. And then Mark is alive, and he's basically trying to figure out a way to eventually beat the Viltrumites. But Mark gets a phone call at the end of the episode, right? At the last episode, episode 7. And it's Angstrom Levy, right? And he is like, hey, on his mom's phone, I believe, right?
Yes,
he
it was his mom's phone.
And was like, I think you need to come home. I'm like, damn it, Angstrom, I can't believe your ass right now. After all that, we've been through so far, I thought it was going to be kind of, I don't know. Did you ever think that Angstrom's motives would have changed eventually?
No.
Or do you think, no, he just still just
not at all. When we saw that stinger in episode 6, at the end of episode 6, and again, for those who are new here, I was late to the Invincible party, which is kind of my thing. And reading up about the character, and then as you see in flashbacks in this episode, when you're that committed to a goal, you're not changing for anybody. No matter what evidence is in front of you, no matter what's presented to you, you are steadfast in that goal. And our friend Angstrom, with his swole cranium, he was about that life of trying to kill Mark.
I don't know how that overcoat fit on his back, but it looked okay, right? Like his whole jacket,
underneath,
it was tailored perfectly for his cranium size. But I was just like, it looks kind of strange. But whatever, I digress. But then Mark shows up to the house, right? He's in a panic. Of course, Angstrom has Oliver and Debbie kind of in his clutches, ready to go to war with Mark. And Mark is basically just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, he doesn't even know who it is at first.
He's like, who are you, right? And he's like, oh, let me jog your memory. And I don't know if he gave him, like, he didn't really give him a memory, but he said something to him that made him kind of remember what happened, right? In the in that laboratory where Angstrom had that accident that basically turned him into the person that he is now. And Mark uses a phrase that pisses Angstrom off, and he's like, oh, you're that guy. And he's like, that guy? That guy? He's like, are you for real? And he's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. And he's like, no, it's already too late. Angstrom was already upset, but it kind of took him to another level. But then
you know what that reminded me of? Sorry for cutting you off, but
no, go ahead.
You know what that reminded me of? Now that you're jogging the memory, it reminded me of Spider-Verse, when the Spot is kind of admitting like his whole spiel, like
Bagel.
I'm this because of you, and he goes, Miles is thinking, ooh, oh, you're that guy with the bagel.
Yeah, the guy here with the bagel. Like,
so that's what it gave me vibes of.
And I think it would be, or it was probably equally as embarrassing to the villain who created this huge master plan to take down the superhero, and now you just turn into, you're that guy from wherever. And it kind of happened honestly with Electro too, if you think about it, in Amazing Spider-Man 2, because Andrew Garfield's character was like, what's your name? Max. Oh yeah, Max, I forgot your name. So we've seen this time and time again, but it was a great ploy, I think, to kind of tip the villain off to, I don't want to say Super Saiyan, but to his next level, to really want to take Mark out and hurt him by any means necessary. And he basically tells Mark, he says, listen, I won't hurt them unless you just let me just kill you. So just lay down and die, and I won't do anything. So of course, Mark's not going for that, right?
Of course not.
He's a Boy Scout. So he's like, I could save the day. So he lunges at him, and for the first time, he gets sent through the universal portal by Angstrom. And the first place he gets sent to is a prehistoric time where he's surrounded by raptors, right?
Right.
We couldn't find out these raptors have evolved so that they can talk.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, Mark starts speaking to them. He's like, hey, you guys don't want to eat me. Nobody's getting eaten here. And they're like, dear God, the Terran speaks, right? And he's like, whoa, I'm surprised you guys speak. So I don't know why you're surprised that I speak. Because I guess in that world, something, the
dinosaurs were the more evolved species.
The ones that survived, and we ended up perishing in that universe.
Yes.
So, I mean, he's there for a little bit. I mean, he's running for his life, and then he gets teleported back. And we're back at Angstrom again. He's just trying to figure out, all right, the more and more I lunge at this guy, or the more I try to use my powers against him, he's just that much faster, because of course Angstrom can create these portals within seconds before Mark even gets to him.
Right.
Do you think if it was Angstrom fighting Nolan, right, would this be an issue, or do you think
No, Nolan would
would
have killed
come
him
faster?
long before that. Nolan would have just found a way to kill him instantaneously.
Yeah.
So I think Mark's reality at this
Mhm.
stage of the episode is the only thing that's keeping Angstrom alive.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, his inexperience with his powers and still trying to develop them. I mean, he's still, I guess, at a lower level of Viltrumite because he is only half Viltrumite, right?
Right. He's Gohan.
But
Right.
right, will he ever get to that amount? We don't know yet. I didn't read the comics all the way through, so I don't know, what the peak is going to be. But I guess we'll see later on, if he's able to develop these powers into a top notch. But it was it was just a question I thought about because I was like, man, I wonder, how would that work? I mean, Nolan, like you said, would probably have he would have popped his little pimple head quick, I think,
Yeah.
within seconds. But yeah, it's kind of like a cat and mouse game that we get to see. We won't go super into detail with every single portal that Angstrom is opening up because as viewers, I think you guys want to see this and it is going to be really, really cool to watch, I think. But they are going back and forth. I mean, every step that Mark is taking, Angstrom seems to be 2 steps ahead at this point.
Correct.
And just to go on a list, what were some of the notable universes that Mark got sent to that you could think of?
Off top of my dome, the first 3, the fake Spider-Man universe. I don't know if that was voiced by Josh Keaton. It sounded like Josh Keaton, the actor for Spectacular Spider-Man, so that was cool. There's a Batman universe cameo, and The Walking Dead. I think those were the first 3 that stood out to me, and I'm thinking, okay, this makes sense that if you're going to send them to all these other multiverses and you're an animated show that kind of pokes fun at superhero shows, this is the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those were probably some of my favorite ones also. There was like a Mad Max type desert universe where, Mark was kind of like, I don't know how long he was there because obviously, like Angstrom said in this episode, time works differently in different universes. So Mark could have been in different locations for weeks. I mean, days for all we know.
Yeah, Mark says that. Mark
so he thinks he's been fighting for months, but come to find out, I mean, it's been a short few minutes that this has been going on in Debbie's actual house. But yeah, I think so. The Mad Max one was really cool for me. I love the Batman, not Batman, that we got to see in there. They didn't like say his name, but
it's just the cape.
The cape, and he was like, "Wait, so you dress like a bat, and your name is something similar to it?"
It's kind of derivative.
Like, makes sense. And then also like the Arachna Man, I guess his name was like the Spider-Man. He was like a Arachna Man, right? And then I think we saw like a Gray Skull, but it was like, I think it's actually a Invincible character, but it reminded me of Gray Skull when I saw it though in its own universe. But Mark is getting his ass handed to him in every single universe for the most part. But he finally figures out a way to counteract and kind of anticipate the portals that Angstrom is creating, right? So he eventually gets a hold of Angstrom and is able to dodge them and kind of like get on top of Angstrom and say, yo, this is it, I'm done, right? I mean, going through portals for months and not figuring out if your mom and your brother are alive can kind of be kind of traumatizing, I think, because he's already been through so much at this point. So he finally gets Angstrom where he wants him. He's getting ready to land a final blow, but of course, what stops Mark from being a Viltrumite is Mark himself and his humanity, right? Because you think when he first got Angstrom in his grips that, that was going to be it, like he was going to finish him?
No, because Mark's been a softie this entire time. That's his whole spiel, is that he's looking for the least, at least in his mind, the least violent way to deal with a problem.
Right.
And in this case, he has Angstrom, pardon the pun, dead to rights here, and he doesn't do it, but it's not because and this is where we start to see Mark kind of veer off a little bit, where it's not because he doesn't want to hurt Angstrom at this point. It's because Angstrom is using Debbie and Oliver as, collateral, about to drop them through a portal that's like 80 stories up, or he has a portal that might cut Debbie in half. So that's what's stopping him. He doesn't want any harm to come to his mother and his brother. And yes, if we were in that position, I would think, I can't speak for you, we would do something similar to keep our loved ones alive and okay,
Yeah.
especially if we knew that we were superheroes or we
Right.
were blessed with powers. But as we'll see, you can only push a person too far
That's true.
until they snap. And we could talk about that. But actually, what I want to discuss actually is Debbie in these moments.
Yeah.
Because, there's a line later that Mark says, "Hey, my mom is, tougher than she looks."
Yeah.
And we see what he means.
Yeah.
She's taking furniture and trying to crack Angstrom in his dome with it, trying to escape, she's not being damsel in distress.
Right.
She's trying to protect herself and Oliver at all costs, to the point where, look, I know this is a cartoon and it's futuristic a little bit, but the way he snaps Debbie's arm, Angstrom snaps Debbie's arm, it's like over here,
so bad,
wobbly, and you see the fracture, you see the blood.
Yeah.
And I can speak for me. My pain tolerance is kind of midpoint. Yeah. But if I saw my bones over there with my arm dangling on this side, I think I would be screaming a lot. Yeah, and Debbie's like, it's okay, Oliver. So good. Kudos on Debbie, because she made it seem like it was just a flesh wound, that she was.
For sure. And it seems like, I don't know, what's happened previously before, we've been able to get this show, in the life of Nolan and Debbie, but it seems like this hasn't been her first rodeo. She's dealt with maybe several things like this before. We don't know. We only know as much as the show tells us so far, but it's kind of crazy to think of, her first reaction is to protect Oliver,
Of course.
And of course, she just wants to help Mark, but she kind of says something or matter of fact, Mark actually says something to Angstrom during this time that makes him kind of think like, are you sure you're the good guy? Because Angstrom in his mind right now thinks, okay, I'm doing the service. I'm the good guy. I'm taking down Invincible, who's the evil villain here. In all the other universes, Invincible has always turned bad, right?
Yeah.
And in this universe, it hasn't happened to Mark. The only reason Mark would turn evil is because of the things Angstrom would do to him or what he would put him through. So come to find out, I guess Angstrom kind of had like a midlife crisis moment where he was like reliving all of the other universes that were combined into his brain, because essentially the machine he was in was to keep all the minds of the other Angstroms and all the other universes into his mind, right?
Yes.
He
lived all their experiences,
right? If that happened to me, my head would be that big, though, True. So he's like, "Why you made me look like this?" Think about it. You kind of made yourself look like this at the end of the day.
And Mark mentions that. He mentions that machine was your dude. Like, relax, man. This is on you.
Because Angstrom didn't want to essentially build his legacy out of blood, right? So he jumped out of the machine too early in the past couple episodes and wanted to save Invincible. And I'm not sure if that really, I guess that jogged his memory, because maybe he forgot that part, with all these different memories of pain and suffering that Invincible has caused all the other Angstroms. Maybe that one little memory kind of got drowned out, I think.
Possibly.
And then we kind of get to see Angstrom kind of relive that moment that he didn't know he had, and was like kind of contemplating like, okay, no, I am
the good guy here.
I'm the good guy, or I'm not the bad guy. But regardless, Angstrom is like, okay, it's already too late. I'm here. We're gonna do what we gotta do here at this point, because I'm gonna take him down. And eventually Mark gets back from the universe he was in, and he sees his mom's arm in condition. Of course, Mark is ready to go berserk on him, right? He doesn't go full Viltrumite, but he does toss Angstrom through I think he like pushes him straight through the building and slams him straight to the concrete. And I'm thinking Angstrom is done. That's it. He's just a big old brain with some snapping abilities, right? Come to find out, he's been modified, right? He's a lot stronger now. Not only is his brain a lot bigger and a lot smarter, and he has abilities, but he also has a lot more superhuman strength. So we get to see them kind of tussle it out, and they're kind of going through all these different universes. And then we kind of see Mark go off. I'm gonna let you describe
Yeah.
Since you are the new Invincible lover, I'm gonna let you break it down for him.
Yeah, so I can start with this and saying, when you mentioned the tussle, Angstrom, to give y'all a little bit of like, I want to say just build up. Angstrom is saying, why do you think I sent you through all these universes so I could soften you up to kill you myself? So, and then he references like, after I kill you, I'm gonna kill your mom and your brother.
Right.
So during this battle where Mark snaps, they're going through all these different multiverses or universes, and they're going back and forth until at some point Mark's like, enough of this shit.
Yeah.
And he just starts. They wind up going into what seems to be 20 years into the future.
Yeah, it's like Armageddon, basically.
Yeah, where the world is a barren wasteland, like a Zack Snyder film.
Yep.
You know, and he is beaten on Langstrom, like, or Angstrom, like his life depends on it, which it does.
It does. Yeah,
but the funny thing is, this reminded me, there was a correlation between this and when people say, oh, Spider-Man, you know, he pulls his punches, right? And then you see in that one arc of Spider-Man where he just beats the crap out of Kingpin, you know, in prison. And then there's another arc where Doc Ock takes over Peter's body in the Superior Spider-Man, and he knocks Scorpion's jaw clean off, right? So that's realizing, oh shit, Peter's been holding back this entire time.
Yeah.
So as it correlates to Invincible, Mark is beating the crap. And by I mean crap, I'm talking about Mark is caked in blood from head to toe. Probably gonna, if he wasn't a super enhanced human, he probably would get some sort of bloodborne disease at that point.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, sure.
he is pounding this man into the ground, and yeah, y'all heard that. And he is just wailing, bang, bang, bang. Don't you ever mess with my, until he comes off seeing red, not from the blood, but from the anger. And when he's done, he realizes he's killed Angstrom. He has beat him to death.
Yeah.
And when Mark has the realization, I think one of the things that stuck with me was Mark saying out loud, I thought he could handle it. I thought he was stronger.
Yeah.
You know, like, because Angstrom said he was what he said, modified, right?
Modified, yeah.
So he could take a punch from Invincible. But that just goes to show Mark holding back versus Mark letting loose. Power grades. We're going power levels, DBZ, that's like Super Saiyan 3 to like Kaioken form.
Right.
There is a lot of disparity in that. Right. And there's so much hubris. I'll say there's hubris. There's apology coming from Mark, but he's almost doing it in a way where he's apologizing to himself. Not for killing Angstrom, but I don't do this. I'm not my dad. I don't cross that line, to borrow the line from Batman. I don't cross that line. But now there's a two-pronged problem here. Not only has he killed Angstrom, and he has to deal with those repercussions, he has no way of getting back home.
Right.
Because Angstrom was in control of the portals.
It was a ticket. Right. It's crazy.
So Mark is stranded here in this desert wasteland, lamenting the choice to kill Angstrom, and just still, and I love this about the animation, still had the blood on him.
Yeah.
I love the continuity of like, oh, the blood didn't just magically disappear.
Yeah, drip off or slide off.
Yeah, like it's there, it's stuck. And you know, and after that, he's just, what do I do? He's flipping out, you know, in his own way. He's freaking out because he's killed for the first time and he's lost in time until the Guardians of the Globe in 20 years time from his real reality pop up. And I could tell you, man, some of them did not age well, especially Adam Eve did not age well.
Oh man, she's been stressed. There's been a lot of stress in her life. I said, whoa, boy.
So the Guardians come and they're like, hey, Mark, you know, we've been looking for you for 20 years on this universe. We need to send you back and not F up the time stream. And it's you know, Adam Eve, it's Monster Girl, what we believe is Monster Girl, the robot dude, which we find out is actually Rexplode.
Right.
20 years from now, which I couldn't stand. It's like, oh goddamn.
I was like, how you make it? I was like, oh, that's
but here's how I think that happened.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you remember this year it was like episode 6, we find out about the robot dude's name, but the robot character, he uploads his brain into the brain of a body so he could ask out Monster Girl.
Right.
So like I'm thinking maybe in order to keep himself going, he puts his brain into Rex, but it's still really Rex. So that was my thought process. Or maybe he just needs the suit to live. But Rex tells her, hey, what did we say about not telling Mark the truth? It's like, shut up, Rex. You know? And there's a moment, and if you want to explain it, that's fine, between Adam Eve.
Go for it. Go for it.
Future Adam Eve goes to Mark and says, hey, whatever you do, tell her you love her, i.e. her, me. Like she's saying, like tell you past me that either you love me or you don't.
Yeah.
So Mark then apologizes to that, and she goes, no. Don't say it to me. It's already too late for that. Say it to her. Either admit you have feelings or don't.
Right.
But do either or to let her go so she can get on with her life. And what happens when he gets back into his own time? What happens, Cam?
He don't do nothing. He okay. So at this point, Debbie's healing in the hospital. The hospitals that she's at is the Pentagon, right?
I'm saying.
And I'm like, she's important. Okay, if you get to go to the Pentagon hospital to heal up, it's gotta be serious. But yeah, you get to see him meet up with Adam Eve, right? And they're like talking. Oh my gosh, Mark, you've been through so much. And then she's like, you could be a shoulder to cry on. I'm like, there you go, right? We're like, she making it easy for you. There you go. That's your girlfriend. I mean, Amber don't want you. She ain't got no time for you.
And right before this, he tries to go visit Amber, hovering above her, and then he's like, never mind, let me go. Right? So there's no Amber anymore. We're good.
Let Amber go, bro. Like that's what I was thinking. I was like, let her go, man. Like she for the streets. Just let her go. He goes to Adam. Amber get crapped on. That's crazy. And they're like sitting there on like some high rooftop. I'm like, oh, this is like, Peter and Mary Jane. It's about to get it happen.
Let's go.
Their hands like do like the teenage touch my hand accidentally
like
type thing.
Yeah.
Our pinkies are touching. And Mark moves his hand away. I'm like, oh my God. And then he says nothing.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to talk to her about something. He's like, yeah, never mind. Look at me just sit here type thing. And I didn't know
what did she do. She rests her head on his shoulder.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, what in the world? Like, that was your huge opportunity right there. Like she's been, giving you slight nods and slight, gratifications that like, hey, I like you. But I don't think Mark is at the mind state where he really wants to be with somebody right now. Cause there's so much going on. Maybe he
just killed a man.
Right. I just killed a dude. I don't think I really want to have a girlfriend, tomorrow, because I've already got this huge weight of pressure, on my shoulders already, trying to conquer the world as a Viltrumite now. And this was breathing down my neck.
Literally
next week. She's we ain't gonna get in that, but
that's future
a later date.
Story.
But yeah, and then now Eve throws this huge news to me, and at first I was like, man, maybe future Eve didn't look that good, so he was like, I'm not.
She was hurting, bro.
I'm not sure I really want that. But
you know what? I didn't even think of that. Now it's just
that's what I was thinking. I was like, man, he probably was like,
on some juvenile tip. I was not thinking about that. He's like, I've seen how bad you age.
As a young man, like you think crazier than you're supposed to.
That's
he's
a good point, bro.
I could do better. So, and I think it was so crazy. So, and then we get to see, a lot of small little relationships, kind of like, I guess, have like a small little part in this show. And of course, Robot and Monster Girl, they trying to figure out, what's going on with them. Robot's still trying to be a leader to the team when really Monster Girl just really wants a friend. So they're kind of still trying to figure out that relationship. And then we also get to see immortal, right?
Yes.
Kate Spade ain't dead, everybody.
Yeah, Duplicate ain't dead. She's there.
I'm like, bro, what is going on? So, I mean, we're
Her
sitting
original
here
copy was alive the entire
original
time.
copy, the number one was alive, and she got tired of dying, is what she said. So she just made herself. But the crazy part is that, so she's been walking around this whole time in that same outfit. Like, what? She's been walking around in her costume for what, 3 weeks hiding? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, but wasn't she the zero copy, which makes her the
she had a 1 on her chest, so I think she was the number 1 copy. But I don't know how the numbers work on the chest. I guess they do change when somebody else, duplicates out of her. But maybe she can do a carbon copy of that same number 1. I don't.
But the thing about this, like you were saying, Immortal is ecstatic because remember he was going through some PTSD.
Oh yeah.
Losing Kate, and realizes she went to his house, right? She was hiding out in his house.
Yep.
Waiting for him to come back, essentially, because now he's on his sabbatical that Cecil said it was okay for him to take. And we were worried for him back in episodes 5 or 6. We were really worried about him.
Oh yeah.
And it's almost healing for him to realize that Kate's still alive. But he's also mad because he's like, I mourned you. Like, WTF? What the hell, man?
Yeah.
But still happy she's alive. And even before the big reveal with Adam Eve, Mark has a conversation with his mom on the roof and says, I'm quitting school.
Right.
And, mom is like, no, like, da, 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 da. And he brings up good points. He says, Mom, the things I can do I really need to go back to school to be an accountant?
Right.
Like, I'm literally a superhuman.
Yeah.
I don't need a 9-to-5 job, right?
Yeah.
And he says, I've done some bad shit, so I need to get stronger, get better at controlling my powers or understanding my powers. Because now I think he's taking on the responsibility of, I'm just going to be a hero. Or I'm going to protect my loved ones. And in order for me to do that, that must be my sole focus, which also leads to him probably not wanting a girlfriend in those last moments of, the Spider-Man thing where, I don't want people going after those that are closest to me. So it's better that you're not my partner. Even though you're a superpowered being yourself.
Right.
Nah, I got to keep you safe too. So we ain't about that life with you right now. So
yeah, which makes sense. And I think, this whole confrontation with Angstrom probably brought up a lot of truth to Mark now. Now he's starting to understand that, he is different than everybody else. So for him to be able to push and really have a normal life was never really in the cards for him, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because, I think there was a quote in some movies like, I think it was Spider-Man. I don't know why we keep going to Spider-Man references. It's just so good to reference. But, it's like, when you have the powers that I have and you don't do things to help people and bad things happen because of me, then it's my fault at the end of the day, So
correct.
And it's crazy. So, I mean, he has to kind of devote himself. And I'm pretty sure Cecil, they're going to kick him out of check. He go on the Guardians. He gonna be good. He ain't got you really don't need it. Okay. College is really for him specifically, not everybody else in the world.
Not necessarily.
Not everybody. Superheroes, it's an exception. Okay. He needs to just stick with that, I think, at this point.
Government employee, benefits for life.
Yeah, that's right. Holidays off. Probably not though. But yeah, I mean, he's still dealing with this PTSD that he's just been building up more and more PTSD, honestly, for the past 4 episodes. I don't think there's been an episode where he hasn't had some type of trauma happen to him. And then we get to see these 2 young ladies that are actually in a archaeological site, right? This kind of confused me.
I didn't get this.
What am I watching right here?
I didn't get this. So if y'all in the audience out there, if y'all watching this, let us know in the comments. What was that? Because I have no idea what that was about. The archaeological dig. And it's this being comes out saying, I will possess the body of a sacrifice. And he goes, it's a sexist demon, basically. It's like, well, he's like, it's 2 girls. Like, I can't, I'm supposed to, possess men. And they're like, well, that's sexist. It's like, well, you're women. Like, yeah. So I didn't understand it. If someone can clarify that for me, I know I can look it up, but I'd rather the audience tell me.
Yeah.
What was that?
And I think it happened back, or the dad who was dead in the tomb next to the sarcophagus was, he had like died in, I think, like season 1, where we saw something like this based on him. But yeah, definitely leave a comment down bottom, so help us out so we can figure this one out. But I think it's so crazy because they dove into this like chamber, right? And they were like, oh, we'll find a way out. What if you don't find a way out? Then what? You just in there with your dead dad. Everybody just gonna die. We just all gonna die. Right next to this ghost.
The sexist ghost.
Sexist King Tut over here. Like, this is insane. But yeah, so I mean, and then we get to cut to our very last scene, which is our cut scene of the end of the season finale. And we get to see Alan and Nolan kind of chatting back and forth about, you know, everything that's going on Earth, as well as all these guilt feelings that Nolan is having. Of course, we see Nolan like twice this episode. He doesn't kick back in until the very end, where they pick back up. And he's having all these guilt, or these, you know, bad feelings about what he's actually done. He's had a lot of time to think, I guess, which has only been like, what, 3 weeks, I think you would say. But he's been in the cell, and he's been thinking about, you know, all the bad things he's done to the people of Earth, how he betrayed his family, you know, how he, you know, almost killed his son at this point, and would do anything for the Viltrumites, who would probably throw him away within 2 seconds.
Identity crisis, essentially. Right. That's what he's having.
Yeah. And he says something that we didn't think we were going to hear at the end of the episode. Like you alluded to earlier, he says, what's going on? And Alan looks at him, because he's just staring into this, and he's like, what's up? He's like, I think I miss my wife.
And it cuts.
You didn't miss her before? Like, what? Well, wait, what? Like, I guess. Well, I will say this though, because
which wife? That's another thing I thought about.
That is a good question. That is a good question as well.
Which wife?
Yeah, because he just takes up a new one whenever he moves somewhere else as a senator. But it's crazy because in the first season, before he leaves the planet, and he's talking to Mark, and him and Mark are like fighting, and he's like, "What about mom? Like, what is this?" He's like, I kind of think of your mom more of as a pet. Which is so, I mean, terrible to say about anybody's mother. I mean, whether you're a Viltrumite or a Kryptonian or whatever, you know, I think that's pretty messed up. And I think anybody's son would probably throw hands on their dad if anybody said that about him, right? I'd be like, all right, we gotta step outside. Like, that's it, Dad. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, was there anything else or any other points that you want to touch on this episode? But I think it was pretty good. Would you?
No, I think we've hit every note, aside from the weird tomb scene. I think I'm going to be intrigued to see next season what happens with Mark and his evolution. I would love to see what's the time skip, because that's the thing that starts to interest me, is when we get a time skip in a series, how much time has passed. You referenced 3 weeks. You know, I want to know how farther in the future they jump. But we've hit every point, and if I had to give this a grade, it's no Tokyo Vice, so I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 for this episode.
It's hard to beat that one. But yeah, I would give it a 4 out of 5. I think it was a good episode because they packed in a lot of action, and it gave us a lot of explanation into where we'll be going into season 3. So I'm excited. There's no word on when that will be coming out, but fingers crossed we'll get some news within the upcoming weeks within the premiere of this episode. Thank you guys for checking us out for another review of the season finale of Invincible Season 2, Part 2, Episode 8, premiering on Prime, April 4th. If you guys like more content like this and you want to see more videos just like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit a notification button down bottom so you'll be the first one to know about new content that we drop on a week-to-week basis. And make sure you check us out at biggoldbeltmedia.com. Until next time, peace.